det er, at der ligger en institutionscontainer nede ad gaden.
Nej.
At være idiot, det er en luksus, men det er også et fremskridt. Jeppe!
Hello, welcome to Movie Humpers. My name is Bob Sham.
I'm Angela.
And I don't have my cup of water. It's all right. This is Movie Humpers, and we talk about movies. The sounds you hear may be dogs. We're about to go into our science fiction theme. Well, it's Star Wars theme. But we got a 6-part full of far distant sci-fi fantasy. A 6-part that we'll be discussing on Friday, featuring the first 2 Avatars, Dune 1 and 2, and Rebel Moons Part 1 and 2, which were so great to sit through those 2. And so check out that one there, but we are doing a double dose of Lars von Trier leading into the month because it's going to be not until the end of July until we get back into Lars von Trier. We want to discuss a dozen Lars von Trier movies before the end of 2024 because this year is going to be complete shit. Complete diarrhea, sharding shit. And let's just watch Lars von Trier movies near monthly just to add to the overall despair, the feeling of it all. It already kind of sucks. This year's already kind of shit, right? For this movie, we're in full Dogma 95. This is the Dogma standard is what Lars von Trier co-signed. They wrote and co-signed the manifesto for Dogma 95. Lars von Trier co-wrote this with Thomas Vinterberg, who's got the Dogma 1.
Yes.
He did the first Dogma 95 movie. And can I go over the Dogma 95 rules?
I wish you would.
I wish you would. Shooting must be done on location. Props and sets must not be brought in. Apparently, if there's a prop you want to use, you got to go where the prop is. The sound must never be produced apart from the images or vice versa. No dubbing, nothing like that. Music must not be used unless it occurs where the scene is being shot. The camera must be handheld. The film must be in color. Optical work and filters are forbidden. So we saw that all throughout Europa, so he's not using any of that. The film must not contain superficial actions such as murders, weapons, etc. Temporal and geographical alienation are forbidden. The film must take place here and now. Genre movies are not acceptable. Literally, his first major film was a genre movie, like a dystopian noir. Mm-hmm. And his third movie was, a post-war kind of noir. The film format must be Academy 35 millimeter, and the director must not be credited. Probably the first rule that got broken in Dogma 95.
Oh, I'm sure. Because
they're going to put these guys' names on it to sell the movie. Mm-hmm. But I guess the point was to push back against a lot of streamlined, over-budgeted movies of the time and try to get things centered back into a more of a creative process.
Yeah, I mean, and, you were kind of pointing out how this doesn't go into the movies he's already made. Well, they also don't go into the movies he makes after this, because this is the only...
This is his one dogma, his one true dogma.
It just seemed like it was just an idea that they had of like, let's do an experiment. Let's do something opposite than what seems to be popular right now.
Breaking the waves, breaking the raves too is that's a good one about dancing and being paralyzed while you're dancing. And but breaking the waves was very handheld too. You could tell he's using that like it was kind of shaky.
But everything else
was not really like that, yeah.
I mean, it really just seemed like, listen, we've talked about this before. I feel like Lars von Trier hanging out with his friends, they just think they're cooler than everybody. And they were like, we're going to do this and let's see other people even try.
Literally like lots of other people did it.
I know, but you know what I'm saying?
I think
Like,
there's something like I don't have the count. It's like 30 something.
oh wow.
Dogma movies.
When you looked through the list, was anything familiar to you?
Well, the first one from the United States was Harmony Korine's Julie and Donkey Boy.
Yes.
But admittedly, I haven't seen a lot of these movies.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one, I think it's called The Celebration by Vinterberg. It's supposed to be really good.
Okay.
And this movie's good too. I
Yeah.
like this one. This movie's different. You're not going to see. I think they should make this version they should remake this movie in the North America. And but like when you're playing the intellectually disabled people, you have to have them wearing pro wrestling t-shirts. That's how you really can sell it to everyone around you. You can borrow some of mine. You gotta wear, especially WWE.
Set up this movie for people who haven't seen it.
All right, so there's this weird little clique, this group. They claim to be anti-bourgeois,
Mm-hmm.
and they go out in public and they pretend that they are mentally disabled, and they encounter.
They call it spazzing.
Spazzing. They call it multiple. They say all the words that are just not
okay.
Politically correct.
Yeah.
And we are introduced to this lady named Karen, encounters them at a restaurant, and she ends up going with them when she thinks they really are mentally challenged, and they drag her into a cab to leave.
Yeah, one of the gentlemen is acting as though he holds her hand and he won't let go of her. So at first she thinks, okay, I'll just help this woman get him out of the restaurant. And then she's like, okay, I'll help her get him into the cab. And the next thing you know, like they're driving down the road and they go a ways down the road. And then all of a sudden, they all break.
Jeg synes ikke, det er sjovt.
Undskyld, Susanne. Ja, undskyld. Hvad helvede skulle vi gøre? Manden er jo på vej med regningen. Det er lort, det vil have kostet os en formue.
They're like talking about what happened, and they're obviously not mentally challenged people. Two of them were, and there was a handler. They always have a handler with them who's not going to participate so that they can take care of everyone.
And Karen she's not like wholeheartedly in it, but she comes to kind of appreciate them. She states as she stays with these people that she's the happiest that she's ever been. But but you know, she's really down. She's broke. She's busted. We don't know where she's come from.
No,
truly.
she does say at one point though that she does not deserve to feel the happiness that she's feeling. And when we first meet her in the restaurant, she doesn't have money for more than a salad at this like nice restaurant. Like you can tell she wanted to like go there and she was alone. And she started to order something and she asked like how much it was and he told her and she was like, I can't afford
she doesn't
that.
really have money.
So she was like trying. So yeah, it was, you just don't know her situation, but the fact that she could just pick up and go too.
But they do their little bit and it helps them to run out on checks and stuff like that.
Yeah, they'll run out on checks. They'll get free stuff.
And this idea, and a lot of it is pushed forth by this guy named Stouffer. Oh, I haven't even said the name of the movie.
Oh yeah.
The English translation is called The Idiots from 1998, directed by Lars von Trier. The second Dogma 95 movie. Also called IDIOTERNE in Denmark. It's hard to determine when you want to use what label, especially like in Japanese movies, because I'm not going to post the kanji, so I do the translation, but like with Il Bidone, I use the...
I would say idiot.
And Le Deleuze, I use their...
Yeah.
But the idiots / IDIOTERNE.
IDIOTERNE.
But Stouffer is very much the most like into the anti-bourgeois type of it. I don't think everyone else is like... but he just kind of comes off like a dick. But he talks about how, you know, in the Stone Age, when you were someone who displayed these mentally challenged tendencies, well, nature would just probably take you out. You would it'd be a death sentence. But now people react to you in a more coddling way. They kind of give you space. They kind of humor you a lot more in the process. And it's it's like this concept almost like the question of whether they're doing it is an homage or if it's rude is definitely the philosophical point of it.
Absolutely. And that's Karen's struggle.
And that is Karen's struggle, but she is having like a lot of fun because they do kind of accept her regardless of her behavior. But it's almost, there's almost this sense of like, it's the most purest form. Some posit that being this way is the most purest form of humanity in the modern era, in the sense of what you can kind of get away with. So they'll go out and they'll tour like some wool factory, and then they're like, it's actually quite funny where the person who's playing the handler is, and like the guy's watching who's doing the tour of the factory. And he watches them get behind the wheel. And he's like, should they get behind the wheel? And she's like, oh,
in
they're
the car.
Hey! That's why they go into there.
The factory part was legitimately, we were cracking up.
Yeah, they let one of the guys drive and he like runs into some stuff. That was very funny. The thing is, you know, you were talking about Stouffer. He's the only one that I think has this sort of higher idea that he's going to recruit people. Like he brought Karen in. Like you get the idea that he brought all these people in. And he never really does say what his end goal is. It's just sort of like chaos. And you know, you're kind of fucking with people, you're getting things, but you're also kind of, I don't know, it seems weirdly like he's thinking it's some sort of like rebellion almost, but they're on a higher plane. But the thing is that he has all these ideas about it. So he gets very mad very quickly when people aren't taking it seriously, or he feels like somebody's not doing a good job. Like Jeppe is one of our favorite characters. He picks on him a lot, but everyone else is basically there to run away from their lives. And that is what's, or they're there because they want to be with someone who's there.
You got one guy who works in like an office.
He's got a wife and a baby.
He's got a wife and a baby. But he's sleeping with a woman who's there. And when we first come into the movie, this woman has come back. You could tell that they had a split and she took off and now she's coming back. And he's looking at it like she's trying to ruin his life. But he's just as responsible, of course. And then you got like art teachers, people who really don't seem to have any kind of career, but people who kind of work in. There's
a writer.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Who seems to be, like, he writes a lot. So it seems as though he's going to do a book about this or something. And then there's a girl who we find out later in the movie is actually she has actual like mental issues.
And she's kind of running away from her family.
Yeah, and not taking her medication.
The Jeppe character he's kind of the most convincing because he's not pushing an over the top kind of angle. It almost seems like Jeppe kind of studied a specific type of intellectual disability, and that's a lot more quiet and a lot more kind of weirdly focused. Yeah, maybe like a type of extreme autism. It sounds really fucked up when we're describing what these people are doing, but it is kind of amazing how you adjust to what they are doing at the same time.
Yeah, and this is again one of those movies. I mean, I feel like we're finding this with every movie. People within the movies are fucking with each other, and he is fucking with us. Yeah. Because one of the most poignant scenes of the film is they're all, you know, they're basically squatting in this house that Stouffer's uncle's trying to sell. And Stouffer's supposed to be trying to sell this house, but they just run everyone off who comes to look at it. But they're having like lunch out and back. And for some reason, a bunch of actually mentally challenged people come over.
They literally go to a place that's not far from where they're at.
And these folks just show up.
And they come over and they interact, and everyone's actually appears to be having a lot of fun just hanging out with these people. But a couple of people, like the girl you pointed out that has mental issues,
she got really upset.
She ran off. She got really upset because of the guilt. And Karen becomes a lot more of a caretaker to these people kind of quickly. But Stouffer's getting upset when people are asking to take pictures together. Like when they're having an actual sincere moment of companionship with these actual people that suffer from certain intellectual disabilities.
And they're treating them well.
Yeah, they're not rude at all. And they're actually kind of fun to hang out with. But Stouffer he's getting mad about it when they're like trying to take pictures and stuff like that. Like he doesn't know. I don't know if Stouffer is really as clear as he thinks he's being in terms of his stance on it.
I don't think he is.
Because Stouffer sees it as like, are we making fun of them when we're doing this? And it's like, when really it should just like relax and just be a human being with these other human beings.
Yeah. And you know, there's these parts where they go out into the world, like you said, to get things or just to fuck with people. There's one part where the attorney man like goes back to work. He's like, I have to go to work or whatever. He works in a firm, and he has this appointment that he has to go to.
Like, yeah,
well, he gets there
pitch.
and it ends up being the girl that he's fucking. And she walks in as though she's like a company who's maybe going to give them a job. And in the middle of it, she starts what they call quote unquote spazzing. And she's doing it to fuck with him, but it's also blowing his life up. So he was right when she was like, she's coming back to fuck me over. Because, you know, if he blows up at her at that job, he's going to get in trouble and possibly get fired. If his wife hears about it, you know, like that could ruin that. But she just thinks it's a game. That's the thing, though. Some of them think it's a game. I don't know what Stouffer, I would really like to know.
Well, I think the biggest end goal, we do kind of know what the end goal is. The end goal is that these characters go into their normal lives apart and they spaz in real life.
But is it to make the other people uncomfortable? Is it to make the other people look at themselves of why do they treat people that way that do that? Like, what is it that
Or is it to kind of transcend this social structure? I think it's like
possibly
a little bit like it all plays in together.
You're almost going into like, I would assume he would say you're almost like on another plane or something, and you're just like experiencing. It is very, the way that some of them experience it, especially like Jeppy and the little girl that he ends up, like he falls in love with her, the girl that's mentally
She's not a little girl.
She's not a little girl. She's just young. She's not a little girl. Sorry. I'm an old woman.
Stouffer takes Jeppy into a bar, and there's these like dudes covered in tattoos. They look like biker types. And he gets Jeppy. He tells the guys that, Jeppy really likes your tattoos because Stouffer's playing his handler. And he's like, wouldn't you want to sit with them? So they kind of awkwardly let them sit there. And there's a woman with them that is kind of very maternal towards Jeppy a little bit. And
immediately.
Then he's like, I'm going to like take off. Do you mind watching them for like 10 minutes? So
you had to go make a phone call.
They're leaving Jeppy here with these big, like burly tattooed men that look like they don't take a lot of guff, right? But, and the thing about these men is that they kind of do the one thing that kind of counteracts what you really want when you do this, in that these men kind of treat him fairly as they would anyone else. They're kind of, they're a little patient with him, but they're kind of like teasing him a little bit as though they would anyone else.
Yeah, talking about how he finds the girl attractive.
Yeah, he's like, you want to like go hook up with our friend here? You want to kiss her or whatever, right? And at one point they're like, I think he needs to go to the bathroom. And they're literally in the bathroom with him.
And they're like, go ahead.
And he won't go.
Der sker ikke meget. Herregud, de kan jo ikke pisse selv sådan noget. Hvem skal have en hånd? Sådan. Så. Så er det bare med at få hældt vandet fra kartoflerne. Kom nu.
And they're like holding his dick and shit, and which will lead me to another thing I'm going to go on here. And Jeppy is trying not to crack, because if he cracks, these dudes are probably going to like get pissed off and beat the shit out of him. You meet people that are just going to shoot it straight no matter who you are. It kind of totally counteracts what they're trying to do and what they're trying to transcend into these social structures.
They seemed like these guys particularly were even kinder to Jeppy than they would be to someone off the street.
They weren't patronizing.
They were not patronizing. They were kind.
It wasn't pity. It was just very straightforward.
But then when he got out of there, he ran away. He was like, I can't. Like, it was really fucked him up.
In this movie, there's nudity all over the place, right? You see genitalia all over the place. I had to order kind of like a Korean printed import bootlegging kind of thing. The only thing I could find in which it seemed to be region coded for the United States was this Dogma first 4 Dogma films collection, which might be a cool thing to own. I'm curious to see the Vintenberg's first one. As far as I know, that's the only U.S. region coded one I found, and I think it's way out of print. So I bought this one that is from Korea, where the menu seems to be in Spanish. But I know, and I didn't realize this about Korea, but in Japan, they will blur genitalia because of the pubic hair. I don't know if that's exactly why they'll do it in Korea. It could be different. But yeah, so we got...
Not the dicks, the pubic hair.
They're naked all throughout. So the cut we showed was like, not all throughout, but a lot of the time they are just... I mean, this is like North Central Europe, right?
Yeah.
They don't... Walking around naked ain't no big fucking deal for them. But it's blurring. We see a lot of blurred crotches,
We
which
saw a
is
lot of
bullshit.
boobs.
We see boobs, but we don't see crotches, and that's bullshit. If there's a crotch, we want to look at it.
Yeah, it's there. Why can't we see it?
And I later found online a uncut straight version with English subs, and the Korean import version we got, that's probably like not even legit, seemed to cut about 3 minutes of an orgy scene.
Yes.
In which they're all fucking, and they cut a scene where one of the girls who plays the handler, not the sultry lady, but the other one, where they're chasing her around and they're getting her clothes off and shit. They cut a bit of that. It
started where he was kind of pulling at her shirt, and she was like, "I'm not participating."
There was more to that. Well, she ends up participating, and some of the actors actually do fuck on camera. Like they short bust it before they short bust it. They short bust it when they're actually they're literally short busting it, and then they fuck on camera.
Just in case you don't know what Short Bus is, it is a movie by John Cameron Mitchell where people be fucking for real all over that movie. And that is kind of the point of it, is that he wanted to really go into like a sex club and have actual sex happening.
Yeah. And so actual sex does happen here. They call it spaz fucking.
Do they? Oh, they do. They do. And it's... They cut that out, but they go to like, I guess I would assume what would be like after the crazy, they go to a more intimate scene with Jeppe and the girl. I wish I could know her name, but she's the one we keep talking about.
I can't remember. I mean, I got the Josephine Louise Miretz. I think it's Josephine.
Maybe. Yeah, it is Josephine. So Josephine and Jeppe, and they are both in it, spazzing, and they're very like sweet, and their connection is like totally real, and they start to have sex, and she says she loves him like twice. He doesn't say it.
Yeah.
But she says, I love you, I love you. And you get that they really do.
Pretty much the next scene, her father shows up.
The very next morning.
And it's kind of drawn out, but she takes her away from the group.
And he like throws himself on the car, like he is desperate for her not to leave.
So then we get to a point where they're demanding that everyone spazzes in their personal lives. It's time to break apart and go into the personal life and spaz. And the guy which one is it? The guy who's...
The attorney guy.
The attorney guy, he ends up not having the balls to do it.
He's like, I can't do this. And he shakes hand and leaves. Oh, one thing we haven't mentioned is that this whole time it's kind of like a documentary in that there are interviews with some of these people, not all of them.
And you can hear Lars talking to them.
Yes, and that guy in particular, his interviewing, his wife is there, and so is his baby. So you know he's with his family at the end of all of this. And at one point he's holding the baby, and at one point he's trying to say he didn't have sex with that girl, and his wife is like, I know you fucked her.
Yeah.
You can just say it in front of me, like, and he keeps denying it, but...
Right. Well, everyone starts to drop off one by one, the majority of the group, because... At the end of the day, they're not going to go do it in their private life.
What was interesting is that Stouffer didn't really necessarily give them shit about it. It was just like, well, if you're not into it, then yes, leave.
So Karen is like, well, I'll go do it.
Så det min tur til at tage hjem og se, om jeg kan være idiot derhjemme. Men jeg nok nødt til at have en med. Vi kan desværre ikke være der alle sammen. Det ikke sikkert, at det bliver så rart. Så jeg tror jeg gerne, at jeg vil have Susanne med.
So, early on in the movie, after Karen initially meets them, we see her on the phone talking to someone named Anders, and it's a very emotionally...
She doesn't say anything.
It's a very emotionally taut scene. So she goes home, and it's like her sisters are there, her mothers are there, her mother is there, and they're all like, oh, you're back? Like, they're not very happy that she has returned.
Yeah, and she has one of the handlers with her.
Right, one of the handlers.
The kindest girl, I think.
So Karen... And then this man comes out and it's Anders. We piece it all together, but that's her husband.
And we have found out that their child died the day, and whose funeral was the day after she disappeared.
Yeah. So, she's at the restaurant the day before they had a funeral for her lost child, and he's mad at her because she flipped out and didn't even show up at the funeral. So she's still left. Married to this man, but she took off and was emotionally broken by the scenario. And her husband and her family just, you could tell, have no respect for her whatsoever. And so the handler lady is just bearing witness to this, and she's there to make sure she spazzes.
Yeah, she's a witness.
But she kind of becomes so emotionally connected that she kind of has to pick her up and carry her up. But as they're sitting around awkwardly eating pastries and drinking coffee, Karen starts to slowly go into her spazzing, and she's dribbling stuff out of her mouth, and like she's just barely there or something, and can't keep the food in her mouth. And her husband just reaches over and slaps the shit out of her. And then that's when her handler, I wish I could remember her name.
I know.
She picks her up. She's like, we don't have to do this.
Det er nok nu, Karen. Skal vi gå? Yeah.
And this is the second in what he's calling his Golden Hearts trilogy. And in the Golden Hearts trilogy, we won't get to Dancer in the Dark for a couple months, but that's the third part of the Golden Hearts trilogy.
That's Breaking the Waves.
But Breaking the Waves, The Idiots, and Dancer in the Dark. But it's these women with some that are different, maybe have some mental issues, going through extreme angst and like suffering in a lot of ways. And we saw what happened at the end of Breaking the Waves. What happens to Karen is mild compared to what happens on the bookends of the Golden Hearts trilogy.
Yeah.
But it's still no less disturbing and sad, and you really feel for Karen. But yeah, the Golden Hearts are just these broken women that are trying to do the best they can. And it's and that is The Idiots by Lars von Trier.
What makes the most sense of why Karen was happier there than she ever was anywhere else is that part of what they're doing is they just sort of have separated themselves from the rest of society, and they are living parallel lives to the rest of the world. And when they go into these spazzes, it's like they can separate themselves from feeling any kind of pain or reality.
Yeah. That is The Idiots from 1998, directed by Lars von Trier. We got to go see Dune Part 2 in the theater, so let's get out of here. You're going to give this 1 through 5. I'm going to give this 1 through 5 combined for best out of 10. What do you give it?
3.5.
Give it a 4. Right at a B+, just under an A, is Lars von Trier's. Oh, I misspelled The Idiots. Hold on, let me stick another I in there. Yes, The Idiots by Lars von Trier is at the bottom of 7.5, right under Speak No Evil, which I believe is from the same fucking country, that movie, the Christian Taftrup movie. It's in the rankings with movies like Speak No Evil, Role Models, Murder My Sweet, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. That one might adjust. I could see that becoming an A down the road. We'll re-examine that one. But it is a unique one for sure. All right, so check the show notes for links and other places to find us. Like and subscribe. Leave a comments, corrections. We got a Deep Space Fantasy 6-pack this Friday, so get ready for that one. And then it's Star Wars month after that. So let's get out of here.
Death to all traitors.
Fascist!